Why do we need to use Excel pivot table? If you want to get key insights from your dataset and create reports on the go, then you might need pivot table. Suppose you have been asked to analyze this data set by figuring out the total sales by product, organize them in a proper order so that you could see which product generate the most sales. You also want to know which salesman is responsible for the highest contribution to the total sales. We can do it in just under 1 minute. Let's get to the video. Before proceeding, we should make sure that our data is organized in a proper format. This means it should be in a tabular data format without having any blank rows or columns. It shouldn't have any subtotals in the middle of the data as well. Once you have checked all these things, you are ready to insert your pivot table. First, let's get to the definition of pivot table. In its most basic form, a pivot table takes data and summarizes it so that you can make sense of it all without typing any formulas. So this is the data that we have at our disposal. But before proceeding to insert a pivot table, let's convert it into a tabular form. Go to Insert tab, and right over here you can see we have this table. Click on Table, and right over here you can see, and Excel is pretty smart in judging where from our data start and where does it ends. Make sure to check this particular checkbox. My table has headers, and now click on OK. Now you can see this visual bothers me too much, so I'm gonna go to Table Styles and click on this one, None. Although we could have done everything regarding pivot tables without using any table, but with the table inserted, it makes our data more dynamic. Which means if you are gonna insert any new entry into your table, later on when you are going to insert pivot tables, this new entry will be included in the pivot tables as well. Click inside the table, go to Table Design, and right over here you can see we have this table 1. You can give it your own name. Let me start by saying Sales Data or Sales Table. Click outside. Now click into the data. Go to Insert tab, and right over here you can see we have these two options, pivot table and recommended pivot tables. I'll go to the recommended pivot tables later on, but first let me click on this pivot table, and right over here you can see it has selected the sales table, the name that we have just given to our table. And the second option, choose where you want the pivot table to be placed, new worksheet or existing worksheet. I think I always insert my pivot table onto a new worksheet. So let me click on OK, and there we go. You can see Excel has inserted a new sheet, sheet 1, right to the left of our sales data. Our pivot table is currently empty as we haven't inserted anything into pivot table fields. Right over here you can see it says pivot table fields. Choose field to add to report. The default option that you can see is a list of the headers that it has picked up from our sales data like these. And right next to it you can see we have these fields like filter, column, rows and values. Now if you click on gear icon, then you can choose any other layout option. For example, you can choose this one as well. Now if you look at the data, it is quite complicated data, and say for example you want to know how much of the sales were there for Asia, Europe, South America, and similarly you want to know which employee contributed much to the sales of RAM, USB printer or DVD. This is what we can do with pivot table. First, I'm gonna select the item right from here and drag it to the rows, and there you can see all the items that were there in the original data set appeared as a row right over here. In the value field, we almost invariably insert anything that contains a numerical value. So I'm gonna insert amount right into this value field, and there we are. Our pivot table is ready now. You can also insert any other header right into this rows as well and check it against the sum of the amount. Let me show you. For example, I'm gonna select this quantity and put it right into this row field, and there we are. Now it has summed up this row labels. These are actually the items. You can change its name right from here and give it a name like items. Now it has summarized the items and sum of the amount, and right at the end it has given you the grand total. Let me click over here, and this time I'm gonna remove the items from the list. So what I would do, simply right click over here and remove the field, and the other option is simply click over it and drag it out like this, and it would be gone. Let me put it back again. Right into columns, you can insert any of the headers given right over here. Let me choose this region and put it right into the columns, and there we go. Now you can see it has given you a breakdown of the data in terms of the amount of the sales that has happened in Africa, Asia, Australia, in up to South America, and this is the grand total. And it has also given you a grand total right at the bottom as well. Let me grab it right from here and remove it, and this time I'm going to place it into the filters region, and there we are. Now if you click on this down-headed arrow, you can see we can actually filter it according to the continents given over here. Let me click on Australia and click on OK, and now you could see the number of sales of keyboard, mouse, RAM and USB in Australia. And similarly, you can change it to Africa, Asia as well. And there we go. This is what we can do with pivot tables. Click again right over here, and let me remove these filters from this filter field. Let me insert the rate right into this value field, and there we are. Let's put the quantity as well, and now it makes even more sense. Let's say I don't want to see the grand total, rather I want to see the percentage contribution of these items to the total sales. For that, simply click over here, go to show values as, you can see percentage of grand total. Click over here, and there we are. You can see the most contribution comes from printers, followed by the monitors. And the contribution from the USB is the minimum. Let me press Ctrl Z to undo it. Let me remove some of the values from this value field. I'm gonna remove the amount and also the sum of the rate. Let me copy this table by pressing Ctrl C and Ctrl V like this. Right into this pivot table, I want to add the amount into this value field, and let me get rid of the sum of quantity. Now right on the top, you can see we have this table design and pivot table analyze. Click on design. Right from here, you can choose the pivot table styles from these given options. Anyway, I'm not going to play much with this particular option. Let me leave it as such. Now let's go to table analyze, and right over here you can see we have this option insert slicer. Click over it and let me insert region. Click on OK, and there you can see a slicer. Slicer is a sort of filter. You simply need to click on each region and it would show you the grand total of the items sold in Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe and America. Right now you can see it's working only for this particular table. Let me show you how we can connect this particular slicer with this table as well. For that, go over here into slicer, go to report connections, and this time choose pivot table 9. Click on OK, and there we are. Now if you click on your, you can see it's working for both the pivot tables. And if you want this slicer to be shown in 2 columns, you can simply click over here and it would be shown in 2 columns or 3 columns. Or if you want to change the height, you can do it right as well. And similarly, you can adjust the width. And if you want to remove it, simply click over it and remove the region. And there we are. If you come right over here into the value field and click on this little arrow, you can see we have this value field settings. As a default option, it gives you grand totals. But if you want, you can choose this average, max, min or count option as well. Let me click on average, click OK, and there you can see it has given you the average contribution from these each items, and the grand total comes out to be 799.5. For this particular table, this average doesn't make any sense, so I'm going to undo it, and the same option that you have just seen, in value field setting can be had right from here as well. Right click and there you can see value field settings. Let me delete both of these pivot tables to show you how you can use the default pivot table options or the recommended pivot table options. Go right into the sales data and click on recommended pivot tables, and there you go. Most of the time, almost 99%, it is too intelligent to pick up the data and analyze it for you. You can see this is the sum of the quantity by region, and this is the sum of the amount in US dollar by region, and row labels, count of employees, sum, etc. If you are not good at pivot tables, then you can use them as a starting point. Let me click on this sum of quantity, etc., and click on OK, and there you can see it has automatically generated a pivot table for us. If you want, you can simply play with these options given over here. Let me click over here. You can see we have this row labels. You can actually name it. Let's give it a name of new items. And if you click on this plus sign, it would expand to show you the employee who are concerned with its sales. And similarly, you can actually expand this keyboard option as, and if you click again, it would collapse back. If you want these plus and negative signs not to appear over here, you can simply click on this buttons over here and they would no longer be active. And similarly, if for some reason you don't see this pivot table fields option, you can click over here. It would appear or disappear right by clicking at this field list option. Let me show you a few more things. Click over here, go to design, and right over here you can see we have this subtotals, grand totals, report layout, or blank rows. For example, in the report layout, I always invariably would like to see my data in show in tabular form. Click over here and this is how it would look like. And in the grand total, let's say you want off for rows and columns, click over here and there you go, the grand total is gone. Let me bring it back, and you can also use this blank, insert blank row after each item. Click over here and it would look like this. Let me click on remove blank. You can also play with all other options. Click on show in compact form and it would look like this. Show in outline form, and this is how it would look. Anyway, I'm gonna stick with show in tabular form. As for repeat all item labels, let me show you. If you click on this plus sign, again click on this plus sign, go again right over here into the report layout and click on repeat all item labels. Click over here and there you can see now DVD gets repeated into rest of these two cells, and so is the case with keyboard. Go again, do not repeat item labels, and there we go. Let me collapse it back. Now lastly, let me show you how you can convert your data into a chart. Let me simplify my data by removing a few of the entries in the value field. Now we have items and sum of the amount in US dollars. Let me right click over here, go to show value as percentage of grand total, and this is how it looks like. Let me go again to insert, and right over here you can see we have pivot chart. Click over it and you have a number of options to choose from. This time I'm going to click on pie and let me choose this particular option. Click OK and there we are. Now you can see it's the pivot chart against the pivot table that we have over here. Now click over here and you can see we have this design options gets enabled. You can click any of the chart styles given right over here. Let me choose this one. I think this looks good. If you want to change any of these things, you can click right over here and choose the data labels or legends or the chart titles right from here. Since it's too self-explanatory, so I'm not going into its details. So that was all about the pivot table in Microsoft Excel. I hope you have found this tutorial useful. Please give it a thumbs up. Do subscribe to my channel and thanks for watching.